Good evening, and welcome to Whispers. Tonight, we're off to the highlands of Korea, where the mountains are home to majestic creatures and where legends come to life. Our story takes us on the trail of a fearsome tiger, a cunning and invincible feline known as Mountain Uncle, whom no hunter has ever managed to capture. But even the strongest have their weaknesses, and sometimes a simple reflection can be the cause of their downfall. In this Korean tale, cunning, pride, and ingratitude intertwine in a mischievous fable. Mountain Uncle learns the hard way that strength is not always enough, and that sometimes those we underestimate can be much more powerful than we imagine. But then, who cares about gratitude in the face of hunger? Will Uncle Mountain be able to listen to the wisdom of nature? Or will his appetite be stronger than reason? Make yourself comfortable and let yourself be carried away by this fable. Let's discover together the story of the Unmannerly Tiger. The Unmannerly Tiger. Mountain Uncle was the name given by the villagers to a splendid striped tiger that lived among the highlands of Gangwon, the long province which from its cliffs overlooks the Sea of Japan. Hunters rarely saw him, and among his fellow tigers, the Mountain Uncle boasted that though often fired at, he had never been wounded. While, as for traps, he knew all about them and laughed at the devices used by man to catch him and to strip him of his coveted skin. In summer, he kept among the high hills and lived on fat deer. In winter, when heavy snow, biting winds, and terrible cold kept human beings within doors, old Mountain Uncle would sally forth to the villages. There, he would prowl around the stables, the cattle enclosures, or the pig pens, in hope of clawing and dragging out a young donkey, a fat calf, or a suckling pig. Too often he succeeded, so that he was the terror of the country for leagues around. One day in autumn, Mountain Uncle was rambling among the lower hills. Though far from any village, he kept a sharp lookout for traps and hunters, but none seemed to be near. He was very hungry and hoped for game. But on coming round a great rock, Mountain Uncle suddenly saw in his path, some distance ahead, as he thought, a big tiger like himself. He stopped, twitched his tail most ferociously as a challenge, showed fight by growling, and got ready to spring. What was his surprise to see the other tiger doing exactly the same things. Mountain Uncle was sure there would be a terrible struggle, but this was just what he wanted, for he expected to win. But after a tremendous leap in the air, he landed in a pit and all of a heap, bruised and disappointed. There was no tiger to be seen, but instead, a heavy lid of logs had closed over his head with a crash, and he lay in darkness. Old Mountain Uncle was caught at last. Yes, the hunter had concealed the pit with sticks and leaves, and on the upright timbers, covered with vines and brushwood, had hung a looking glass. Mountain Uncle had often beheld his own face and body in the water when he stooped to drink. But this time, not seeing any water, he was deceived into thinking a real tiger wanted to fight him. By and by, a Buddhist priest came along who believed in being kind to all living creatures. Hearing an animal moaning, he opened the trap and, lifting the lid, saw Old Mountain Uncle at the bottom, licking his bruised paw. "Oh, please, Mr. Man," said the tiger, "let me get out. I'm hurt badly." Thereupon, the priest lifted up one of the logs and slid it down until it rested on the bottom of the pit. Then the tiger climbed up and out. Old Mountain Uncle expressed his thanks volubly, saying to the shaven head, "I am deeply grateful to you, sir, for helping me out of my trouble. Nevertheless, as I am very hungry, I must eat you up." The priest, very much surprised and indignant, protested against such vile ingratitude. To say the least, it was very bad manners and entirely against the law of the mountains. And so he appealed to a big tree to decide between them. The spirit in the tree spoke through the rustling leaves and declared that the man should go free and that the tiger was both ungrateful and unmannerly. Old Mountain Uncle did not like what he heard. He was not satisfied, especially as the priest was unusually fat and would make a very good dinner. However, he allowed the man to appeal once more, and this time to a big rock. "The man is certainly right, Venerable Mountain Uncle, and you are wholly wrong," said the spirit in the rock. "Your master," it continued, "the mountain spirit, who rides on the green bull and the piebald horse to punish his enemies, will certainly chastise you if you devour this priest. You will be no fit messenger of the mountain lord if you are so ungrateful as to eat the man who saved you from starvation or death in the trap. It is shockingly bad manners even to think of such a thing." The tiger felt ashamed, but his eyes still glared with hunger. So, to be sure of saving his own skin, the priest proposed to make the toad a judge. The tiger agreed. The speckled-back toad, with his gold-rimmed eyes, looked very wise, and instead of answering quickly, as the tree and the rock did, he deliberated a long time. The priest's heart sank while the tiger moved his jaws as if anticipating his feast. He felt sure that old speckled-backed toad would decide in his favor. "I must go and see the trap before I can make up my mind," said the toad, who looked as solemn as a magistrate. So all three leaped, hopped, or walked to the trap. The tiger, moving fast, was there first, which was just what the toad wanted, as he was a friend of the priest. Besides, old speckled-back toad was diligently looking for a crack in the rocks nearby. So, while the toad and the tiger were studying the matter, the priest ran off and saved himself within the monastery gates. When at last old speckled-back toad decided against Mountain Uncle and in favor of the man, he had no sooner finished his judgment than he hopped into the rock crevice and, crawling far inside, defied the tiger, calling him an unmannerly brute and an ungrateful beast, and daring him to do his worst. Old Mountain Uncle was so mad with rage and hunger that his craftiness seemed turned into stupidity. He clawed at the rock to get at the toad, but Speckled Back, safe within, only laughed. Unable to do any harm, the tiger flew into a passion of rage. The hotter his temper grew, the more he lost his wit. He poked his nose inside the crack and rubbed it hard on the rough rock. His anger did not wane, but at last his strength left him, and he fell to the floor, utterly exhausted. When the hunter came along, he marveled at what he saw, but he was glad to get rich by selling the tiger's fur, bones, and claws, for nothing in Korea sells so well as a tiger. As for the toad, he told to several generations of his descendants the story of how he outwitted the old Mountain Uncle.